campus leaders from various institutions in the country just to get a feel of their involvement in the national agenda setting when it comes to politics in the country. Not just that, we'll equally take a look later on various issues. So do stay with us for this and much more. Once again, welcome to the broadcast. I'm Jesse Rogers. As usual, we'd like to begin with the latest covered on international dailies. And we'll begin first of all with the Daily Monitor. Covers extensively the latest developments happening in Uganda. And we'll definitely see it on our screens right now. One of the main stories covered on the page, police blame fresh massacre killings on land conflict. That's one of the stories covered right there, even as they highlight the confirmed cases of coronavirus in the country and the region at large. BOU issues tough rules for bunkers, even as security on test after assailants killed 3 more people in one night in Masaka. Quite unfortunate right there. The government ring fences 300,000 Sinovac jabs for teachers. Good developments right there in terms of inoculation against the COVID-19 virus. 51 Afghans arrive in Entebbe airport as several Ugandans trapped in Kabul, where scores of Ugandan nationals remain trapped in the now militant-led Afghanistan due to challenges of accessing the airport at Kabul. More details on that, even as Uganda has welcomed those 51 Afghans leaving Afghanistan. Over to Tanzania, the Citizen, which covers extensively the latest developments from our East African neighboring country. American farm to buy all processed cashew nuts in Tanzania. More details on that particular collaboration between the two countries. Dar attack, what we know so far. Of course, videos and photos of the mayhem in Dar es Salaam took center stage on social media just yesterday, with news authorities intelligently reporting that the gunman who was causing mayhem in Dar es Salaam was shot down just yesterday by police. But there are more details on the information we know so far, even as it was unfortunate 2 policemen were killed as the attacker was shot dead outside the French embassy in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The president, of course, condoles with the families of the victims of that particular Dar attack, even as they promise to follow up on the issues surrounding security in the country. Over to CNN World News. Some of the main stories covered on this page. U.S. warns of security threats at Kabul airport, even as the Taliban is sort of inching closer to pushing the U.S. out. I think the deadline is Tuesday next week. The U.S. Embassy in Kabul has advised U.S. citizens at a number of gates at the airport to leave immediately. So it seems the security situation is deteriorating. We'll continue monitoring the latest developments from Afghanistan. More details from across the continent. More kids are catching COVID as U.S. turns into a bellwether. Of course, the importance of getting that particular vaccine is quite important. Mass vaccination going on in the country, so make sure you're adequately inoculated and prepared to fight against the virus. China is encouraging couples to have more children. But there's one problem. Find more details about that particular story. That seems to be the latest covered on CNN, even as they have different featured stories. So make sure you're adequately informed about the latest developments covered on the international pages. Let's take a look at what's transpiring locally. As I mentioned earlier, with me, Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard and the Daily Nation. Over to the front page of The Standard. This is what you can expect in today's dailies. Resign. That's a big question. Uhuru's big dilemma over Ruto. You'll see it on your screen in a while, where it highlights the limited options between the president and his deputy, where they say from the onset, the president and his deputy's relationship was a time fuse, given the DP's growing ambitions and Uhuru's agenda and succession plan. We explore Uhuru's options and lessons from past vice presidents. Well, it's good to remember that under the 2010 Constitution, they're joined at the hip. So the lessons from the past vice presidents might differ according to the current dispensation. But anyway, we definitely learn from our past. Other stories covered on The Standard as Matiang'i warns social media users against using vulgar language and how they will face the full force of the law, even as the CS for Education, Professor George Magoha, is upbeat on school transition, where there have been efforts to ensure that the 100% transition to Form 1 for all candidates who sat for the KCPE examinations is slowly bearing fruit. But the big story of the day, how Equity Bank seems to have distanced itself from the Turkish international Harun Aydin, who was closely linked to Deputy President William Ruto. And Equity says he was a stranger to us, definitely contradicting statements from what the Deputy President mentioned. But just taking a look at the front page of the Daily Nation, it's a race against time for President Uhuru Kenyatta. That's the headline right here. You can expect a political rush. The head of state faces a delicate balancing act as he seeks to accomplish his goal of living a united country. So it's a full entry for the president, even as his term in office is almost ending. One of them, the Big Four agenda, ensuring that it's achieved, even though the Parliamentary Budget Office says it might not be achieved by the end of the president's term. The second issue on his entry, national unity, where he plans to unite the country under the BBI, and that suffered a setback rather last week after the Court of Appeal ruled against it. 2022 succession, even as he's planning his succession, the Mount Kenya bloc, where he's facing serious challenges in keeping the region's vote bloc behind him in 2022, with his deputy having made significant inroads in his backyard. That's the main story on the Daily Nation. But of course, they also highlight what Equity Bank mentioned. It wasn't us, as they denied Ruto's 15 billion shilling loans claim. And of course, sharp focus on Tanzania, where a man actually killed 4 in that Dar gun rampage. We'll get to highlight some of these stories during this particular segment of Press Review. So let's begin with this top story surrounding Equity Bank and their link with the Turkish national Harun Aydin, where controversy surrounding this relations between the deputy president on one side and the Turkish national intensified just yesterday after Equity Bank denied knowledge of him, saying it had no financial dealing with him. Bank officials who appeared before a parliamentary committee denied advancing Aydin a loan of 15 billion shillings for an investment project in Uganda. Get a look at the details by Murimi Mwangi right here.
When the Kenyan government deported controversial Turkish national Harun Aydin, there was a loud protest from none other than Deputy President William Ruto.
Business people like Karaoke and Keroche are criminalized. Now you have gone even to foreign investors. You want to criminalize them on account of pettiness and political competition.
But Aydin's controversies and questions on the nature of his relationship with the deputy president did not end with his purported deportation. On Wednesday, the Turkish national was the subject of a parliamentary probe on Equity Bank holdings, as the National Assembly Finance and Planning Committee questioned the bank management on reports of financial dealings with the Turkish national, including queries on an alleged 15 billion shillings loan.
He does not operate, and he does not have a banking relationship with us. Neither does he have a loan.
Aydin was listed on a plane manifest among those who were to fly with Ruto to Uganda earlier this month for what the deputy president said was a business trip. At the time, Ruto claimed he had assisted a Ugandan investor access a 15 billion shillings facility from Equity Bank. The unnamed investor was also alleged to have a connection to Ruto through Aydin. Their dealings would days later come under the radar of Ugandan financial intelligence agencies over suspected money laundering.
Is there a relationship between Equity Bank, Kenya Limited, and the Day Group? Is there any facility that has been advanced to this particular group? Is it to the effect of 15 billion that we were told about on that particular phone call? Is it true that these accounts of this particular company were frozen by the Financial Intelligence Authority of Uganda?
On such an amount of money, that is 15 billion, be loaned without the knowledge of the MD, and then is it the practice of the bank to loan money from Kenya to another country?
There's a credit committee system, and then also you have to then report to the central bank if a certain loan is going beyond your capital requirements of that particular subsidiary. Is not a syndication that you're talking about. So I myself am not convinced, and I think that there is something that you're hiding.
We have not extended a facility of 15 billion to Mr. Aidin, to Day Pharmaceuticals, or to any pharmaceutical company in Uganda. So we'd like the record to reflect that.
Prior to his deportation, Aidin was grilled by the Anti-Terror Police Unit for what Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i would days later disclose was suspect travel within the region and suspected money laundering. Claims Ruto has maintained were fabricated to politically paint him in bad light. And with the committee seemingly not keen to extend the summonses to Ruto's office on the Aidin fiasco, mystery continues to surround the Turkish national's deportation nearly a month later. Murimi Mwangi, KTN News.
Well, that story by Murimi Mwangi is covered extensively in today's dailies. More details on page 10 of The Standard, who highlight how the Turkish national link to Ruto is not our client, says Equity Bank, where the group actually mentioned this. Aidin has never been an account holder, has never had any relationship with us, either directly or indirectly through Day Group Limited. He's a stranger to the bank, and he is unknown to us, even though Equity admitted financing Day Group Limited to expand its pharmaceutical, biotech and research plant, but denied advancing 15 billion to any of its clients, actually mentioning that the maximum loan you can get from the bank is 2.5 billion Kenya shillings. So a sharp contrast to what the Deputy President mentioned earlier on during an interview on how he helped this particular investor borrow up to 15 billion Kenya shillings to set up a project in Uganda. This will form part of the conversation I'm set to have in studio. Joining me, Kariuki Ngunjiri, political analyst. It's great to have you with us. Mweupe kama pamba, as I can see.
Oh, thank you so much. This is not just what people call a normal outfit. This is informed by the ideology of the leftists.
Okay, we'll get to talk more about that. But Wakili, karibu pia, we're definitely expecting more intrigues in terms of the latest legal developments around BBI. It's great to see you. Okay, so let's begin on this, Kariuki. But what would say you about this particular contrast, a sharp contrast between the Equity Bank and what the Deputy President had to say earlier? Who's fooling who here?
You see, first of all, I want to underline this. I want the people to understand these facts. The Deputy President did not say that the Turkish investor was the one who acquired the funds to go and invest in Uganda. And to confirm this, I want to read for you a tweet here from none other than President Yoweri Museveni when he said on the 6th of July 2021, the Kenyan Deputy President joined me for the groundbreaking ceremony of Day Biopharmacy Limited, a multi-billion pharmaceutical drugs and mRNA vaccine manufacturing facility in Wakiso district. The facility, a brainchild of Mathias Magola and funded by Equity Bank Limited, will focus on applying biotechnology to solve health issues through creation of novel drugs, vaccines, and diagnostics.
Okay.
I want to confirm that indeed the official of Equity Bank, who was at the Parliament yesterday, gave the truth and the simple truth. The spin by the media is just a creation that is set to paint the Deputy President in bad light.
What spin?
So the
What
facts,
spin?
The facts are clear. The spin is to portray the deputy president as a dishonest person.
But he himself mentioned these words.
The person who was funded was, I have read for you, was Mathias Magola, who was linked to the Turkish investor as one of the advisors. And I also want to mention this, Mr. Jesse. Uganda, even if it's not been able to make huge progress in democratic values and principles for quite some time, the president of Uganda has made consistent efforts to encourage foreign corporations and foreign investors to invest in that country. I think that for us as a country, and you can remember the Dangote story, when he wanted to invest in the cement industry, and you know what happened after that. Uganda is largely built by foreign investments and foreign corporations. So we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing to the enterprise ecosystem in this country? Are we encouraging more and more decriminalization of enterprise? You saw what has happened to Keroche and all these other companies.
All right,
so
all right.
I mean, let us not be taken away by what we see and read on some of these newspapers. Sometimes they overstep their mandate in giving Kenyans the truth, because Kenyans are supposed to be the judge, and at the end of the day, it is clear that the guy who was the brainchild of this one, and you have had the tweet from President Museveni, was Magola, and that is what the person from Equity Bank said.
Okay, but that's not what the deputy president said, and I think that's the sharp contrast perhaps Gladys Wanga, the finance committee chair, was trying to pick at. Suleiman Bashir, as you sit right there, but what do you read from this back and forth?
But you see,
let's give him a chance.
The Turkish investor was just a technical person in all these issues. The person who was to oversee the construction of that and oversee the setting up of it practically is Mathias Magola. So the Turkish investor is just a person who brings the technical side of setting that biotechnology.
And that's fine. The amount as well is also in sharp contrast, because Equity mentioned 2.5 billion is the maximum amount. So Suleiman, what say you about this?
Just you see, if we are to revisit those facts, it doesn't go without us saying that the 15 billion amount was mentioned, the Equity Bank as a bank was mentioned, the Turkish investor was mentioned. So for as long as we have those three facts, I think what we can see from the parliamentary oversight, that the Parliamentary Investigative Committee, is it is trying to maybe delve into certain facts. But just now we ask ourselves, what is the ordinary procedure? Is whatever the committee is doing right now, is it in order? And what is it seeking to achieve, I think? So I think legally, the committee is doing its job. This is part of the oversight role that it has, and that is the objective. I mean, that is one of the functions that they were given by the people of Kenya. On the other part, Jesse, the committee is now trying to ask hard questions, those specific officials of the bank. You see, Jesse, it goes without us saying that the regulations that were set by the CBK sets certain requirements over the financial lenders. This kind of banks, such as Equity Bank, are supposed to meet certain requirements if they are to lend certain sums of money, such colossal amount of 15 billion. So I think when the banker appeared before the committee to answer the questions that were imposed, that were posed by the committee members, it made a lot of sense. Jesse, for us, you see, we are not appreciative of the actual things, the behind the scenes issues, but as Kenyans, what we so far appreciate are those facts in terms of the amount, and the financial institution was mentioned, and the committee itself now is doing its job, and these were mentioned by the DP. Now, Jesse, we ask ourselves, at this stage, does this help? You see, if the Turkish investor was charged in a court of law, if he was in this country, if charges were preferred against him and there was an ongoing case, it would have made a lot of sense. But the timing within which this investigation is coming, all these kind of questions, may not be so important right now. But again, on the flip side, again, someone else might argue that this is really important. You see, our country has suffered lots of money laundering activities. Financial institutions have breached certain regulations that were set by the CBK. I think to revisit this kind of incident is equally important. On the other part, this is to ensure that in future the financial lenders are not taken advantage of, maybe by quote unquote by money launderers, people who are maybe interested in financing terror activities and all that. So Jesse, I do not want to read deep into the politics of it, but I think in law, the CBK regulations are there, and if at all they are breached, the committee can ask their questions, and the financial institution, the financial lender in this case, the one that was mentioned, has every right to clear its name because it has the people behind its back, and it has the customers and the Kenyans at large. So I think whatever we have witnessed yesterday is quite in order. It is very important that at all times we just get the facts right.
Okay, well noted. A lot to do with that particular story, even as the DP, through his spokesperson, David Mugonyi, is quoted to have said the DP did not help Aideen get money from Equity. He helped some East African investors, and it was 2 years ago. So more details covered in today's dailies. Gentlemen, let's also take a look at this other story that's covered on the front page of today's daily, how Kalonzo has confronted land matters at the DCI. The Wiper party leader was just yesterday back at the DCI in a bid to clear his name over alleged grabbing of NYS land in Yatta. Once again, the differences between him and Deputy President William Ruto was laid bare, with the Wiper leader accusing the Deputy President of allegedly being involved in some scandals. Alan Ochanda with this story.
At 10 a.m., Wiper party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, flanked by his lawyers Siaya Senator James Orengo and his Makueni counterpart Mutula Kilonzo Jr., made their way to the DCI headquarters for questioning for allegedly grabbing land belonging to NYS in Yatta. This was the second time Kalonzo was making the trip to the DCI after Deputy President William Ruto made unsavory statements about him and his Yatta land. After hours at the DCI, he made his way to his SKM command center, where his lawyer Mutula Kilonzo Jr. made public the DCI findings, while Kalonzo launched a scathing attack on the person of his accuser, Deputy President William Ruto.
That this is the final investigation in this matter. They have closed their file, and therefore the above property is legally owned by Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka.
Our countryman Muteshi died a desolate man after fighting grabbing of his 100-acre farm by the second most powerful man in the country.
In January this year, Deputy President William Ruto alleged that Kalonzo, as a long-serving state official, had illegally acquired his Yatta farm, allegations that angered Kalonzo, who appeared before the DCI, ready to be investigated over the matter.
Umekuwa kiongozi, ukawa naibu wa rais, ukawa waziri katika karibu wizara zote, alafu ile record uko naye ni moja peke yake. Eti mahali unaishi ilikuwa ni shamba ya serikali. Huna record ingine.
The two have declared their interest in succeeding President Uhuru Kenyatta, have been firing salvos at each other, accusing each other of falling short of the constitutional integrity threshold.
Ati slogan ya chama yako, ati ni kazi kazi bila wizi. Nafikiri umechanganyikiwa, my friend. Nafikiri slogan yako inataka kuwa wizi wizi bila kazi.
The reason why our people are being lied to day by day with empty promises, empty sloganeering, is because of the corrupt wanting to hide behind power.
The Wiper party boss vowing to take legal action against Deputy President William Ruto over what he terms as falsely accusing him. Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
Okay, so more details covered on today's dailies on page 5 of the Standard on how exactly the Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has threatened to sue Ruto over that Yatta land saga, where the DP earlier on had questioned how Kalonzo acquired that 200-acre property in that particular soundbite we've just listened to. So, Wakili, what make you of this back and forth? Was this necessary, going to clear his name and perhaps pushing upon the deputy to do the same when it comes to matters his name has been mentioned?
You see, Jesse, reputation is always very critical. It's so crucial to the persona, to the person himself. And I think when the deputy president makes such allegations that the former vice president has allegedly grabbed certain parcels of land, that is not a statement that is made by ordinary Kenyan. It is made by a senior government official who we quote-unquote appreciate or believe as the public that by the time he's saying that, he has a lot of information about it. And I think whatever the former vice president did since January 2021 was to clear his name in two ways. One, when he visited the DCI initiated investigations, and now that has been set the record straight. How does he tell politically? The people of Kenya now, as he was able to do yesterday, he was able to tell them that, look guys, these were pure propaganda and these were cheap lies, and now the facts have been set straight by the investigative body, and my name has been cleared. That is one advantage that he will get over it. The other advantage is the report that actually was made by the DCI yesterday is what he will now use to lodge in a court of law and sue the deputy president for defamation. And he has a strong case, and the deputy president will be liable to pay a compensation to the former vice president. And I think, Jesse, going forward again, this tells us that when you look at how the law is framed, it is any time that someone is able or wants to make certain political statements, he or she going forward should have certain facts right so as not to suffer the kind of fate that was that might be suffered by the deputy president. But Jesse, I think it's really important to again know that once he's charged, if at all the former vice president decides to prefer charges against him, it will be purely civil. It will not be criminal at all. And let me add this: that I think there was a conversation that was ongoing whereby some people are now saying that the whole agenda is to maybe have the present deputy president to be summoned by the investigative body. I think, Jesse, that is not making sense at this stage because the investigation has been completed. That would have been crucial before yesterday's report was delivered, whereby maybe the DCI could request the honorable deputy president to maybe visit them and give them some more statements or more information about the alleged grabbing of land. I think, as we speak, on the part of the investigative body, and generally this is a gone matter, save for the fact that the deputy president might strongly prefer good case against the deputy president.
The vice president might refer charges against the
former vice president.
Okay, well noted. So Ngunjiri, from where you sit, what political implications might this have? Because fighting corruption is the agenda on each presidential candidate's entry. What say you about this?
First of all, Kalonzo Musyoka was making a political statement yesterday. I don't think it was all framed to make sure that he's cleared of those allegations, because perhaps in future he would be denied an opportunity to vie or anything. I think that in preparation for his own politics ahead of 2022, that is why he decided to go to the DCI and say whatever he said yesterday. I also saw him talking about the deputy president again, also rebutting and also making some allegations. I think that the former vice president has decided to choose a war with the deputy president. I am tempted to say that he is seeking to put himself on the same level with the deputy president, even when he was ignorant of the fact that for the years that he'd been vice president, he slept through the most important phase when he should have created the name or the popularity that he's seeking. I think that he needed to have a transition of getting out of government and rebranding himself to survive in this other ecosystem of politics that involves rhetoric and such kind of jabs. However, he did not manage to do that when he retired. So I think he's coming now in as a preparation for him to keep on taking on the deputy president back and forth. But like you can see, it's on the deputy president, it's clear that he does not engage him directly. Rather, he chooses to have David Mugonyi, who is the spokesman, answer Kalonzo Musyoka. And so that tells you that whatever he's saying does not warrant the Deputy President going out there and commenting or rebutting on the same. So it's just a minor issue.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Do you envision a scenario where the DP perhaps will take the same step to perhaps clear his name of this alleged corruption vices he's been mentioned in?
I want to tell you this morning and to the viewers that politics has never been a church choir. If you think that you come to politics and you lead a hymn and everybody else takes on the chorus and answers you, then you are misguided. Politics is a dirty game that has a lot of mudslinging, and you expect that as long as you exist in that environment, people will always seek to bring you down in certain ways and give themselves a competitive advantage ahead of any election.
Okay.
So all this is expected, and anybody who does not understand that it is not the most intelligent who survive, it is those that adapt to circumstances by means of natural selection. That is Charles Darwin. So if you don't understand this fact, then most likely you end up every time whining like Kalonzo Musyoka. And I'm surprised, because he's been a politician in this country for so many years, not to understand that sometimes you also have to develop a thick skin and also understand that politics has a lot of dynamics in it. So the Deputy President is not worried about the nonsense that always go around people making certain wild allegations that they cannot prove. So for him, his main goal right now is on the discussions that we're talking about, the economy and all that. So let people also understand that as long as people will compete in politics, there will always be this kind of card setting that seeks to bring somebody down and uplift another one. So this is normal politics, and people will navigate through, and we will overcome.
So he might be seeking political mileage, but we'll definitely get your rebuttal right.